I've spent countless hours researching Armored Core 6 trailers, interviews, leaks, and speculation. Stay tuned to learn why I think Fires of Rubicon will see us break the chains of our AI handler, take up the callsign Raven, fly free to lead the natives of Rubicon 3 in a fervent jihad to destroy the coral industry, evicting the greedy corporations from the system, and how Fires of Rubicon fits in the first timeline of Armored Core 1 through Another Age. What's up gamers, it's Absurd here, and today's video will cover what we can expect from the story in AC6 based on the history of the franchise, the official releases, and a leak from 2022 that's been confirmed, at least in part, by those official releases. I'll add here a spoiler warning for all the Armored Core games in general, including Fires of Rubicon, as well as for Dune, which I will be mentioning later. I'll start with some general history to create a framework for speculation. Armored Core has always been a setting of corporate feudalism, with corporations, government committees, and insurgent factions all struggling for superiority in the setting. The games have typically been set on Earth after an apocalyptic event. The first generation of games would be set primarily underground, as the surface was made inhospitable by the events of the Great Destruction. The second generation would see humanity attempt a return to the surface and beyond to Mars. These two generations form a narrative referred to as the first timeline by Armored Core fans. The second timeline starts fresh with the third generation games and is also set underground after a nuclear war. The fourth generation games begin the final timeline, in which humanity flees to suborbital floating cradles rather than underground, and is theorized to end with Armored Core 5 and Verdict Day, with a return to the surface, though the connection between the two generations is loose at best, with only a couple Easter eggs that connect them. We know that Rubicon 3 as a setting fits this tradition, as it experienced a cataclysmic coral event 50 years prior to the events of AC6. Since we are seen entering the system via dropship from orbit, it seems that humanity's presence in the system may be restricted to spacecraft or stations remaining in orbit, with the exception of course of armored cores or other labor technology like worker MTs that we see in the release trailer. But why would humanity be on Rubicon 3 at all if it was recently devastated by a calamity referred to as the Fires of Ibis? Well, let's take a look at the leak I mentioned earlier for some further context going forward. The veracity of this leak in January 22 by Red Licorice on the Reset Era forums can now be confirmed by comparing the accompanying screenshots with official releases. The text of the leak is as follows. Melange, an unknown substance that could dramatically advance human society. In the past, this substance caused a cosmic catastrophe on planet Vashtar that engulfed the surrounding star systems, and eventually its very existence was lost. Decades later, the melange reaction was confirmed again on planet Vashtar. In search of the unknown substance that should have been lost, various speculations begin to swirl. Various parties are getting involved. The government, corporations, cultists, and unknown mercenaries. The protagonist is one of them. This prized substance called melange in the leak is now officially named Coral, with Vashtar now known as Rubicon 3. This connection is confirmed in the IGN producer interview and leads me to ask, what exactly is coral? This is answered in part by the survey leak and by official releases, which characterize it as a valuable substance worth fighting over and volatile enough to devastate a star system. This potential for massive energy would be valuable for harnessing as fuel or weaponizing for warfare, both considerations that likely weigh heavy on humanity in a foreign star system. Aside from the industrial and military uses, it is also implied that coral can be used as a biological augment in humans. This is where the leak's nomenclature, melange, might be useful. Melange is a reference to Frank Herbert's space opera Dune, in which melange is colloquially known as spice. Rival feudal houses are in competition over a planet, Arrakis, chiefly because it is the only known system in which this powerful spice can be found. Sounding familiar yet? Melange is prized for its mind-altering effects, the most valuable of which is the expanded awareness that allows navigators to safely guide ships at faster-than-light speed. This might remind Armored Core fans of AMS, the allegorical manipulation system in the 4th gen games. which allowed lynxes to pilot next with the reaction time and control required for their insane potential for speed. Coral consumption is likely critical to how we are able to pilot our AC in Fires of Rubicon via the cerebral coral control device. I have two theories regarding this device, which I'll sometimes refer to as the CCC. The CCC could be an implant that secretes coral similar to the drug gland implants in Ian Banks's culture books. Since we are a dog with a handler, control of the coral secretions is likely in the hands of Walter, rather than a conscious process as in the Banks novels. This of course would be assuming that coral control means controlling the coral. The other interpretation of coral control could be that the device is using coral to control us in some way, which might remind AC fans of Human Plus. In the first timeline mentioned earlier, with Armored Core 1 through Another Age, Human Plus was a medical technology enhancing the musculoskeletal and nervous systems of the recipient, and was primarily used by AC pilots to increase their effectiveness, similar to the aforementioned AMS in 4th Gen, and OP Intensify from 3rd Gen. In AC1, it is only ever available to the player after accumulating 50,000 credits in debt, and used as a means of erasing that debt. While this serves mechanically as a difficulty adjustment for struggling players, the lore implication is that you are submitting yourself for experimentation to pay off your debt, similar to how people today can get paid for participating in clinical trials or testing products. This augmentation technology is ubiquitous throughout the games, and it's no real surprise to find in Fires of Rubicon. However, Human Plus from 1st and 2nd Gen is distinctly interesting with regards to coral control because of one notable case. In the mission Destroy Plus Escapee from AC1, we are hired by the Murakumo Corporation to find and destroy a deranged former Raven who escaped from their Human Plus program. The escapee's final words to us feel like a warning. Armored Core Lore on YouTube theorized in their video on Human Plus.
This seems to suggest that Human Plus affects the mind too. A suggestion has led to the theory that this guiding intelligence who first gifted the corporation this technology is somehow able to use Human Plus to control the mind of a subject, either because they would interfere with its goal, or that they are a threat to it.
Consider this post I found on the Armored Core Discord. It was posted by user Nos, who states they are a game journalist for 3D Juegos in Spain, who interviewed Armored Core 6 director Masaru Yamamura and producer Yasunori Ogura. In the post, Nos states, "You play as a merc for a certain Walter who's a shady handler fixing you missions. You don't see him in person." This carries strong vibes of Handler Walter being an AI when considered in the context of AC1 and Human Plus. Additionally, this official screenshot appears to be an AC confronting a supercomputer, which is exactly how Armored Core 1 ends in the mission Destroy Floating Mines. So if we assume that we are a dog, Walter is our AI handler, and the cerebral coral control device is the leash by which Walter controls us, either using mind control or controlling our access to the coral that fuels our abilities, what would all this mean for the story? If we look back to Dune, which we can assume now the Fires of Rubicon plot is based on at least in part, in a nutshell, House Atreides, the temporary stewards of Arrakis, is betrayed by the Emperor, and surviving this betrayal, the protagonist Paul Atreides escapes and is taken in by the Fremen natives. The spice melange is central to the Fremen way of life, and the sandworms that create it are religiously revered. Eventually, Paul leads the Fremen in a holy jihad to destroy the colonization of Arrakis, liberate the Fremen, and rehabilitate the planet. Though to my knowledge it has yet to be officially mentioned by FromSoft, the consumer survey leak did mention that cultists were among the factions battling over the coral supply. This suggests a similar religious fervor among the natives of Rubicon 3 to the Fremen jihad in Dune. One of the story paths could likely be allying with the natives to force out the corporations and other interested parties. The taglines "Feed the fire" and "Let the last cinders burn" resonate with the threat by Paul Atreides to destroy all spice on Arrakis at the end of Dune. This thread of speculation also has interesting implications for our character. Historically, the player character in Armored Core has been speechless, and this element has been confirmed by From Software to remain true in Armored Core 6. Our agency is from our selection of missions, which impacts the possible endings of the story. Our agency will be stripped down further by our handler Walter until we get to what I expect is the first major decision point in the story: encountering Raven. Raven as a call sign in the trailer is significant given the history of the franchise. It is a callback to old generation games, and the symbol of the Raven represents freedom and liberation. This is practically demonstrated when the protagonist wrests the independence of the Ravens back from the Earth government who is controlling them at the end of Armored Core 2. Consider the difference in connotation between dog and raven. Dogs are submissive and chained, while ravens fly free and independent above the concerns on the ground. This string of clips suggests that there is an AC named Raven that we are sent to take out by Walter. Since we are a hound, the existence of a raven as a symbol of freedom would pose a threat to Walter's control over us and any other hounds. I think the story could branch here, with one option being that we side with Walter and eliminate the Raven, continuing on as his hound until the next decision point. Another branch could be that we choose not to eliminate the Raven, resist Walter's control via the CCC, sustain near fatal damage from the stress of resisting, and are recovered by the natives rather than our handler, much like Paul and Dune. We know from the trailers that we take up the call sign Raven, which leads me to believe that the initial Raven is destroyed and becomes a martyr for the native resistance movement, and that we borrow the call sign. I also like how this clip could suggest the idea of a Spartacus moment in which all the freedom fighters take up the call sign Raven. This potential story branch entails us transforming from dog to Raven, from being handled to flying free, and like Paul Atreides in Dune, leading a jihad of freedom fighters, a jihad of ravens free from Coral control, perhaps further enhanced by its use uncontrolled by a handler, or even liberated from dependence on Coral as a means to pilot our AC altogether. This line of thought reminds me again of Armored Core 2, when we renew the liberation of the Ravens from the government by stopping Leo's Klein on Mars. And considering everything else I've covered, I believe that Armored Core 6 fits nicely as a continuation of that first timeline, forming a grand narrative in which humanity moves from underground to surface to Mars to being extrastellar on Rubicon. A narrative in which Human Plus becomes a ubiquitous tool for AI to enhance and control pilots, while the low-burning ember of free ravens lives on in memory to be stoked again by the fires of Rubicon. I felt like a crazy conspiracy theorist connecting threads and images on a wall while making this video, so please let me know what you think in the comments. This video took a lot of work in research and editing, so please like and subscribe to let me know if this type of content is worth doing more of in the future. If you enjoyed the video and want to show your appreciation, you can buy me a beer on Patreon. Until next time, Ravens, enjoy the journey.